My name is Emma Sinclair. Last summer, I sat quietly in the back row of my sister's lakeside wedding while she toasted her new forever home, the same cottage our grandmother promised would be mine. I waited until the applause died down, then stood and handed Vanessa a single envelope. Inside was a summons from the district prosecutor's office. She opened it with shaking fingers, and for the first time in her life, Vanessa had nothing smug to say. Before I tell you how we got there, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. If you've ever been betrayed by your own family, especially over something you were told was yours, this story's for you. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend away. I'd packed light. A soft sweater, my sketchbook, a tin of cocoa mix only Grandma and I ever drank. I even brought the old metal key that used to hang on a nail by her back door. It still had the faded pink tag she'd scribbled Emma's escape on the summer I turned 13. The lake was just as I remembered it. August air thick with pine and sun-warmed water, the cries of distant loons, the rickety mailbox leaning like an old man at the edge of the drive. But something was wrong the moment I stepped onto the porch. A flower pot I'd made in 4th grade was gone. The porch light, her favorite hummingbird-shaped one, had been replaced by something sleek and modern. Still, I pushed the key into the lock, expecting that click of welcome. It didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. My heart thudded against my ribs. I checked the tag. Same key, same house. I looked around, unsure. Had someone changed the lock? I called my dad. He picked up after 2 rings. Emma. Hey, I'm at the lake, the cottage. The key doesn't work. Did you change the lock? There was a pause, sharp and heavy. That's how it has to be now, he said, his voice colder than the lake in January. I blinked. What are you talking about? He exhaled into the phone, long and tired. Let's not do this over the phone. No, we're doing it right now. This house was Grandma's gift to me. She told me that every birthday, every Christmas, she said it was mine. It's complicated, he muttered. Complicated, my voice cracked. She left it to me. In writing. Did you even read her will? He didn't answer. Dad, I'm sorry, Emma. Things changed after she passed. We did what we thought was right. You did what? My voice rose, panic flooding me now. Did you sell it, lease it? Who's staying here? It's not your concern anymore. My stomach dropped. You're giving it to Vanessa, aren't you? The silence was answer enough. This isn't happening, I whispered. You can't just take it from me. This house's was Grandma's legacy. His voice hardened. Emma, it's done. Then he hung up. I stood on the porch, phone still pressed to my ear, the chirp of the call's end sounding impossibly loud. For a long time I didn't move. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the key. I turned toward the car to leave, but it coughed twice and died. Battery light flashing red. No signal bars. The sun was sinking fast behind the trees and the air had cooled, damp with evening. There was no one else around. No neighbors I trusted anymore. I circled the house, fists clenched, heart hammering. I had no plan. Just grief and fury and the ghost of my grandmother's voice in my ear saying, You'll always have this place, Em, no matter what. One window was cracked open above the kitchen sink. I didn't think, I climbed. The inside smelled exactly the same, lavender and lemon balm, dust and old wood. The blue enamel teapot still sat on the stove. Her knitting basket still tucked beneath the recliner. I leaned against the counter, breathing fast. She would be horrified. I didn't sleep much that night. Curled on the floral couch beneath an afghan she'd crocheted decades ago, I stared at the ceiling fan spinning its slow circles above me. Outside, the lake lapped gently against the shore. Inside me, something darker stirred. Not just heartbreak. Resolve. If they thought they could steal her legacy from me, they were about to find out who I really was. I barely slept, but I didn't need an alarm. The light woke me. That warm, golden kind of light that touches everything gently. The lake first, then the porch steps, and finally my face through the window. I sat up slowly, the afghan sliding off my shoulders, my limbs sore from the awful position I'd folded myself into on the couch. The silence was thick but kind, not like the cold silence of unanswered calls or slammed doors. This one wrapped around me like a memory, familiar, peaceful. I padded barefoot across the worn floorboards, careful not to wake anyone. Out of habit, but there was no one to wake, just me and the house. I opened the back door and stepped onto the porch. The lake was glass, not a single ripple on the water like it was holding its breath. The trees were still, heavy with the morning mist. I sank down onto the steps, tucking my knees into my chest, the wood cool beneath me, and I let myself breathe. It hit me all at once, how long it had been since I just sat, not rushed, not worried, just existed. The mug hook beside the screen door still had her old tin camping cup hanging from it, the enamel chipped at the rim. Grandma used to say coffee tasted better out of something real. God, I missed her. She used to sit right here, every morning of every summer, cradling that blue tin cup and humming the same off-key lullaby. I could never remember the words, just the rhythm of her voice and the way she'd rest her hand on my knee when I was next to her. I could almost feel her now. That memory opened the floodgates. I remembered the way she'd help me bait a hook with gummy worms because I was too squeamish for the real ones. How we made hot cocoa with nutmeg and a little sea salt, her secret twist, she'd wink. We'd sit by the fireplace, mugs warm in our hands, telling made-up stories about the people who used to own the fishing boats across the lake. She always said this place would be mine. One day, when I'm gone, this house will still be your safe place, Em. You'll need it more than you think. I'd laughed at the time, too young to understand grief or betrayal. And now, here I was, not even allowed in the front door. I stood up, my legs stiff, and walked slowly through the house. Everything was layered in dust. My grandmother's sweater still hung from the peg by the door, one sleeve caught awkwardly like she'd always left it. Her sewing box was open on the kitchen table, a pair of tiny golden scissors peeking out, the kind she used to let me trim threads with if I promised to be careful. Even the lavender sachets in the dresser drawers still gave off their fading scent, lavender and wood smoke, her signature. In the hallway mirror I caught sight of myself. Wild hair, puffy eyes, yesterday's shirt. I looked like someone mid-breakdown, but I wasn't. No, I was remembering who I was. I ran my hand across the kitchen counter. The tiles she and I had regrouted one summer when I was 15. We made a mess and got scolded by my mom for ruining our clothes. But Grandma just laughed and said, "What's the point of life if you don't ruin a few things on purpose?" I swallowed hard. "I promised I'd keep this house alive," I whispered into the still air. I promised. And somewhere in that whisper was a vow. Because this place wasn't just a structure. Wasn't square footage on a deed. It was where I became myself, where I felt seen, where I knew I was loved without condition. Vanessa could have the fancy hair, the big wedding, the Instagram-perfect life, but she wasn't taking this. The house may not have been locked in my name yet, but my memories, my history, she couldn't touch that. I took out my phone again, the battery at 8%, and reread my last message to Dad. "You lied to me. She left this place to me. I won't let you erase that." No response, of course, but that was okay, because I wasn't leaving. Not until I got answers, not until I got the truth. I took one last look out at the lake. The sun was higher now, glinting off the water like gold coins scattered across the surface. And in the silence, I made another promise. "You kept this place alive for me, Grandma. Now it's my turn." By the time I got back to the city, the sun was already sinking between the towers of glass and steel, casting long shadows over the sidewalks. I hadn't changed clothes, hadn't slept properly, hadn't eaten anything since the cocoa tin in Grandma's cottage. But none of that mattered. I was running on fury now. My fingers curled tightly around the handle of my tote as I stepped into my parents' home, an immaculate two-story in a cul-de-sac so polished it could have been lifted from a suburban catalog. Same fake warmth, same carefully arranged throw pillows, same feeling that if you made too much noise, you'd ruin the illusion of perfect family. I didn't bother knocking. "Dad," I called as I stepped inside. He emerged from the den like he'd been expecting me. "Emma," he said calmly, like this was a casual Sunday drop-in. "I figured you might come by." I dropped my bag onto the side table a little too loudly. "Why didn't you tell me the truth? You gave the cottage to Vanessa." Exhaled, not irritated, just tired. That always-on managerial voice he used when he wanted to make things sound reasonable, especially when they weren't. "It wasn't just me," he said. "We all agreed. It was the right thing to do." I blinked. "What? It was a wedding gift," he said simply. "Vanessa's starting her life, the timing made sense." "She's starting her life," my voice cracked with disbelief. "What about me? Grandma told me every year that the cottage was mine. Since I was 12. She said it was her promise. She didn't put it in the will, Emma." I stared at him. "That's not true." He paused. A flicker of something crossed his face, hesitation, guilt. But it was gone before I could catch it. "Look," he said, moving to sit on the armrest like this was just some difficult business decision. "Your grandmother was a sentimental woman, but she left it to the family. And we, as a family, chose to give it to the person who needed it most. Left it to me, I said quietly now. You're twisting this. Don't be dramatic. I'm not, I shot back. You just didn't expect me to ask questions. At that moment I heard heels clicking against the hardwood floor, and then she appeared, Vanessa. My younger sister, glowing from her bachelorette spray tan, hair swept back like she was walking a bridal runway. She held a manila folder against her hip and wore that half-smile that had always been her weapon of choice. Polished. Pretty. Poisonous? Oh, she said sweetly, you're here. I want to see the paperwork, I told Dad without taking my eyes off her. Vanessa tilted her head like a curious cat. You mean this? She held up the folder, letting it fan open just slightly before pulling it back. Glossy real estate documents. My stomach dropped. I thought you'd show up eventually, she said with a theatrical sigh. Emma, it's mine now, all official. Title transfer, registry, everything signed and sealed. I looked at Dad. He said nothing. Vanessa stepped closer, opening the folder just enough for me to glimpse the notarized seal. You'll get over it, she said with mock comfort. And of course you'll be invited to visit, maybe once we get it repainted. Repainted? I echoed, dazed. She grinned. I'm thinking a soft sage, and maybe one of those modern fire pits on the porch. The stone one is so outdated. It was like she'd stabbed me with every word. I pictured the chipped blue teapot, the knitting basket, Grandma's humming, her hands worn and strong, lacing mine with love. And now this woman, my sister, wanted to refurnish it. I couldn't breathe. I can't believe you, I whispered. Either of you. Vanessa's expression tightened. Honestly, Emma, grow up, it's just a house. No, I said, voice trembling. It's my life, my memories, my promise to her. Dad crossed his arms. Emma, you're overreacting. Then why does it feel like I've been robbed? I snapped. Vanessa rolled her eyes and turned toward the kitchen like she was bored with me now. God, you're exhausting. That did it. The tears came fast, hot, and humiliating. I didn't want to cry, not in front of them, not now, but I couldn't stop it. My throat burned as I turned and grabbed my bag. Their voices followed me to the door, Vanessa's laughter like a knife in my back. I barely made it to the sidewalk before the sob broke loose. The house blurred behind me through tears. The same one where I'd done book reports at the kitchen table. Decorated cupcakes with Vanessa as kids. Where I used to believe we were a real family. Now I wasn't sure what we were, but I knew what I wasn't. Welcome. It took me 2 full days to stop crying long enough to think clearly. I stayed with my friend Brielle in her guest room, a little studio apartment above a florist shop that always smelled like eucalyptus and coffee grounds. She didn't ask for details. Just handed me a blanket and said, sleep first, then we plan. By the second morning, I was ready. I dug through the canvas folder where Grandma had kept all her serious papers. She'd given it to me the summer before she passed, saying softly, keep this safe, Em. One day you'll need it more than I will. At the time, I'd assumed she meant family recipes or a letter of advice. I had no idea it held her original will. I hadn't looked at it in over a year, couldn't bear to after the funeral. But now, trembling, I opened it. And there it was. I, Martha Sinclair, hereby leave my lakeside cottage and surrounding land to my granddaughter Emma Sinclair for her sole and full ownership. My name, in her handwriting, clear as sunlight. So what did Vanessa have? It didn't make sense. I snapped a photo of the document and Googled the nearest independent estate lawyer with decent reviews. That's how I found Malcolm Wells, mid-40s, sharp-eyed and refreshingly blunt. Come in, he said after I showed up with a nervous smile and the folder clutched to my chest like a shield. Tell me what they did. I told him everything. Grandma's promises, the locked door, the sudden wedding gift, Vanessa's smug little announcement with the transfer documents, and finally the will I'd found. He listened without interrupting, tapping a pen rhythmically against his desk. When I finished, he asked only one thing. Do you have a copy of what your sister used for the transfer? No, I said. She wouldn't show me more than the front page. Then we'll request it, he said, already typing. Public registry filings are accessible through the county office. Give me 2 days. 2 days felt like 2 lifetimes. I paced Brielle's apartment, checking my phone every hour, rereading Grandma's will so many times I memorized the loops of her signature. I knew that writing. I could have picked it out blindfolded. She used to dot her I's with tiny hearts when she wrote notes to me, even in legal stuff, just a faint smudge like a secret between us. On the 3rd afternoon, Malcolm called. I have what they submitted, he said. Can you come in now? My heart lurched. Yes, I'm on my way. I got there in 20 minutes. Malcolm didn't waste time. He handed me a packet, Vanessa's version of the will. The page was clean, crisp, notarized. I barely made it to the signature line before my stomach flipped. It wasn't hers. It says she left the cottage to her beloved granddaughter Vanessa, Malcolm read aloud, frowning, and mentions a different executor. That's not the version you gave me. It's not her handwriting, I whispered. Exactly. He laid both wills side by side under the lamp. Compare the signatures. Mine, Grandma's real one, was curved, smooth, slightly tilted like always. The other one was straighter, stiffer, off. They forged it, I said, my hands tightening around the edge of the table. They forged her will. Malcolm looked at me carefully. Emma, this isn't just about stealing property. If this is fake, it's criminal fraud. I nodded slowly. Good, that night I couldn't stay at Brielle's. Her apartment, with its cheerful music and clinking wind chimes, suddenly felt too bright, too normal for the kind of storm that was settling in my chest. So I went home, not to the lake cottage, to my place. The one-bedroom walk-up in the city that smelled like pine cleaner and ambition, where I hadn't changed the wall calendar in 3 months because nothing felt worth marking. I opened a bottle of wine, Grandma's favorite, a cheap California red she always called smooth enough for good company. I wasn't good company tonight, but the bottle didn't seem to mind. I sat out on the small balcony overlooking the street and let the air settle around me, cool and quiet. The documents Malcolm had given me sat heavy on the coffee table behind me, untouched since I came home. Knowing they were there felt like sitting on top of a volcano, pretending it was just a warm hill. They forged it. The words hadn't stopped echoing. Vanessa, my sister, my parents, all of them. It wasn't just a lie. It was coordinated. They'd drawn up a fake will, found someone willing to notarize it, filed it behind my back, and handed my grandmother's cottage, my memories, my promise over to someone who used to steal my clothes and call it borrowing. And they smiled while they did it. I wrapped the blanket tighter around my shoulders and took another sip of wine, letting it burn down into my chest. Was I ever really part of this family? I whispered. The words barely made it into the air before they were swallowed by the night. But the ache they left behind stayed sharp, because I didn't know any more. Had I ever been more than the background girl, the responsible one, the emotional buffer who never needed too much, who never demanded anything that couldn't be neatly ignored? Did they see me at all, or just the space I left behind when I didn't argue? I pressed my face into the blanket, tears slipping out hot and fast. Grandma would have fought for me. She did fight for me. She left that cottage in my name, and they tore up her wishes like she was a footnote, like I was. I don't know how long I stayed there. Maybe an hour, maybe more. Long enough for the wine to stop tasting like anything and for the night to stretch out in front of me like a tunnel with no end. And then, suddenly, out of nowhere, I thought of Josh. Josh Anders. The one person from that side of my life I hadn't spoken to in months. Not since before Grandma died. Not since the funeral when he sat 2 rows back in a gray suit that didn't quite fit, his eyes red but his jaw clenched like he was holding in every word he didn't say. He'd been Grandma's neighbor for years. Grew up across the cove. Fixed her dock after the big storm 2 summers ago. Drove her into town when her knees gave out. Called me when she'd taken a fall, even before the paramedics had arrived. He was always around. But after she passed, we just stopped. I don't even remember why. Maybe grief, maybe silence. Maybe the strange way people vanish when they don't know how to stay. But I remembered the way he looked at me when we stood by her casket. If you need anything, he'd said softly, don't hesitate. I hadn't believed him then. But now, as I sat on my balcony, drowning in betrayal and red wine, something in me flickered. Josh had known Grandma well. He'd been at the lake more than anyone. He'd helped her manage things when I couldn't be there. He'd seen the way she treated me, how much she trusted me. And if anyone knew what Grandma had actually wanted, it was him. I reached for my phone. I didn't sleep that night. After the call went through and I heard his voice, lower than I remembered, rougher, I just sat there clutching my phone like it might evaporate if I let go. Tomorrow morning, he'd said. And I'd whispered, yeah, coffee. Like we hadn't spent years skipping stones and fixing fences and building fire pits like family. Now here we were. Josh had picked the old diner off Route 8, the one with cracked red booths and faded checkered floors. Grandma used to call it the only place left that doesn't care about being cool, and Josh clearly remembered that. I slid into the booth just as he looked up, that same familiar half-smile already tugging at the corner of his mouth. He stood up, always the gentleman, and motioned to the waitress. "2 coffees," he said, then turned back to me. I tried to smile. I failed. "You look tired," he said gently. I laughed once, dry. "That's generous. I feel like someone sandpapered my brain." "Emma," his voice softened. "What happened?" So I told him. Everything. From the key that didn't fit to the cold call with my dad. From climbing through the kitchen window to watching my sister wave notarized paperwork in my face like it was a game she'd won. I told him about the smell of lavender still trapped in Grandma's dresser, and how I spent the night curled up on that couch listening to my whole past being scraped away by silence. I tried to keep it even. Detached. Like a story I was telling for someone else. But when I got to the part about the will, the real one, the one I'd kept safe all this time, written in Grandma's careful cursive, I broke. "They forged it, Josh." My voice cracked, and I blinked fast, but the tears came anyway. "They used her death to steal from me, my own family, and the worst part is, I think they planned it before she was even gone." Josh reached across the table and took my hand. Not dramatically. Not for show, just steady, solid, real. "I believe you," he said simply. The waitress came by, dropped off our coffee, and said nothing about the tear sliding down my cheek. God bless her. I looked down at our hands. "You don't think I'm imagining it? I think your dad has always treated Vanessa like she deserves whatever she wants, and your mom follows along to keep the peace." That hurt. Mostly because it was true. "And Vanessa?" I asked. "She'd take whatever was shiny," he said, "even if she had to yank it out of your hands." He said it without venom, just observation. Josh had known us both since we were kids. Vanessa used to flirt with him in high school, back when she wore braces and lip gloss and thought the world owed her love for showing up cute. But Josh never played into it. He always treated her like a buzzing distraction. He looked back at me now, serious. "If there's a forged will, there's a paper trail. That kind of fraud doesn't happen without mistakes." "I hired a lawyer. He's digging through the registry filings." Josh nodded. "Good, but we'll go deeper. We'll find everything they buried." "We." His hand didn't move from mine. "You think I'm letting you walk through this alone?" I swallowed hard. "No one else believes me," I admitted. "I do," he said. "And Grandma did too." That nearly undid me again. He released my hand to reach for his coffee. "We'll go through everything, emails, dates, signatures, even the notary who stamped it. If they faked it, we'll catch them." I stared at the steam curling from my mug. "I don't want revenge." Josh raised a brow. "Could have fooled me." I smiled, just barely. "I want justice. I want what she actually gave me. I want my home back." "Then let's start building your case," he said. "They buried the truth. We'll dig it up." And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. Josh showed up the next morning with 2 large coffees and a folder tucked under his arm like a man walking into battle. "Guess what I found in my dad's old fishing cabinet?" he said, setting everything down on my kitchen counter. "A copy of the will your grandma gave him for safekeeping. She made him a backup witness back when she got nervous about your mom meddling in family business." I blinked at him. "She did," he nodded. "She asked him to hold on to a copy in case anything got complicated." I stared at the folder, my chest suddenly tight. Of course she had. Grandma never left anything to chance. She always saw things coming long before the rest of us did. I reached for the folder and gently opened it. Inside was a slightly faded photocopy, Grandma's handwriting, dated 2 years before she passed. And there it was again. "The house goes to Emma Sinclair, sole and full ownership." We now had 2 copies, one original in my Canvas file, one witness-backed duplicate from Josh. But the document Vanessa filed, that was something entirely different. I set everything on the dining table and pulled out the digital print Malcolm had sent me of the forged version. I placed it beside the originals, lining them up beneath the desk lamp. Side by side, the difference was glaring. Subtle, yes, but glaring once you really looked. "Look at the loops in the Y's," I murmured. "Grandma always made these long tail strokes. She said it made her handwriting dance a little." Josh leaned in. "This one's stiff, like someone copied it by memory instead of muscle. And the ink line on the forged version, it's too even, too flat, like it was printed, not signed." Josh pointed. "See that signature? It's smooth and yours, natural, but here, see that tiny tremor at the end, like someone hesitated." We sat in silence for a moment, studying the papers like they could confess to us. This wasn't a misunderstanding, I said finally, voice low. Josh nodded. This wasn't a last-minute decision either. I looked at him. You think they planned this? I think someone, maybe all of them, decided it was easier to pretend she didn't mean what she said. That it was better to rewrite the ending than honor the truth. I folded my arms tightly across my chest. She trusted them, she trusted me. Josh gave a small, bitter laugh. She trusted you, Emma, that's why she gave the house to you, not them, and maybe they couldn't stand it. I swallowed hard. The room felt colder. We began gathering everything, the originals, the copies, the forged document from the registry, and the list of witnesses Grandma had once mentioned in passing. Josh even remembered a phone call where Grandma had asked him to come help her scan something to email to a legal advisor. He found the old PDF on a dusty hard drive in his garage that night. Her signature matched perfectly. Everything was building, layer by layer, like a puzzle finally taking shape. Around noon, I sat back in my chair, exhausted but focused. They built this lie like it was a house, I said quietly. Josh looked up. Then we'll take it down brick by brick. We locked the documents into a fireproof box that night, labeling everything, documenting each step. I even started a spreadsheet. Because now this wasn't just emotional anymore. It was legal. And we were ready to fight. Stick around with us, hit subscribe for the rest of the series. The day we were supposed to meet Malcolm again, I woke up early, too early, and sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing yesterday's hoodie, hands clasped tight in my lap. Josh had sent a good luck text at 6:15 a.m. with a little coffee emoji and a "let's end this." I wanted to believe we were that close, that it was just a matter of walking in with the truth and watching justice click into place like puzzle pieces finally aligned. But somewhere beneath my skin, there was a slow throb of dread. At Malcolm's office, the receptionist gave me a polite smile and led me to the same quiet meeting room where I'd first learned the will had been forged. That room had become the place where truths dropped like stones and left bruises you didn't see right away. Malcolm entered with a thick folder under one arm and a tight look around his eyes. My stomach dropped. You found something, he nodded, but not the kind of nod that brought relief. He laid the folder down and opened it slowly. I reviewed the registry documents again, compared every version you and Josh provided. There's no question your copy is the original, the one signed in 2019. Witnessed, clean, it holds legal weight. I exhaled, finally. Then we're ready to, he held up a hand. But, he said, there's a problem. That one word split something down the center of me. Malcolm flipped to the forged copy, the one Vanessa used. This version. It was signed in early 2021. Submitted through the official property transfer channel. It includes a notary stamp, and I verified the seal. My brows furrowed. And, it's real, I blinked. What? Malcolm sat forward, voice calm but firm. The notary who validated this forged will is a licensed professional. Her seal is registered with the state. Her signature matches her file. From a legal standpoint, this version is airtight. That's not possible, I said, my voice rising. You saw Grandma's real signature. You said it was clearly forged. I know, he said. But the law doesn't care what we feel. It cares what's filed, stamped, and verified. Whoever created that will didn't just scribble something and hope it passed. They went through channels, they planned. My mouth went dry. They found a notary who'd go along with it, I whispered. Malcolm didn't answer immediately, then quietly, or they found one willing to look the other way. The room felt like it was tilting sideways. So, what does that mean for me? It means this will be harder to fight than we thought. We'll need to prove intent to defraud, not just argue handwriting. That means going after the notary, digging into how and when the document was signed, and showing the court that Grandma's earlier will was the true intent. But that version wasn't filed, I said bitterly. Because she trusted us to honor it, Malcolm nodded. And they didn't. I stood, suddenly too restless to sit still. I paced the length of the room, arms wrapped around myself, heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. She gave me everything, I said. And they erased it. They buried it, Malcolm corrected gently. But we're not done. This doesn't end here. I stared at the forged document again. So clean, so official, so wrong. They left me nothing, I muttered. Not even the truth. My voice broke, and I felt the helplessness swell behind my ribs like a wave I couldn't stop. Everything we'd built, every memory, every corner of that house was being slowly wiped away with ink and stamps and bureaucracy. Josh was right. They didn't just lie, they armored it. And now I'd have to tear through that armor piece by piece. But in that moment, all I could do was stand there, trembling, and wonder, what kind of family does this? The manila folder felt heavier than it should have. Maybe because of what it carried, or maybe because I knew once I handed it over, there was no going back. No more quiet, no more pretending this was just a family misunderstanding. Josh waited with me in the narrow hallway of the county courthouse, his leg bouncing under the bench like he was the one about to drop a legal bomb. I tried to stay still, the folder tucked against my chest like a second heartbeat. Inside was everything: Grandma's original will, Josh's corroborating copy, the fake one from the registry, the notary's suspicious record, my written statement, and a cover page in bold: probable will forgery request for review. I can still do this anonymously. I whispered. Josh nodded. You're not pressing charges, just requesting a preliminary investigation. They don't need your name on a headline yet. That word, yet, echoed down the linoleum hallway. The clerk behind the bulletproof glass window finally waved me forward. Hi, I said, voice steadier than I felt. I was told to bring this for preliminary review, regarding a suspected forged will. He glanced at the label and raised his eyebrows. You have supporting documentation. Yes, I said, sliding the folder beneath the slot. All organized and dated, originals and copies. He took it carefully, scanning the front page. We'll open a case file, he said. A deputy prosecutor will review it within 10 business days. You'll be contacted if we need formal statements. I nodded. Please keep it confidential until then. He gave a small, sympathetic smile. You'd be surprised how often family and fraud show up together. I blinked. I don't think I would anymore. As we walked out into the crisp afternoon light, I released a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Josh kept pace beside me, quiet for a few steps. Well, he said finally, that was the sound of a line being drawn. I glanced at him. You mean the end of pretending this is going to quietly fix itself? He gave a single nod. That one. We reached the sidewalk, where my car was parked at the edge of a yellow curb, and I stopped walking. The courthouse behind us looked small now, but it had become the place where everything shifted. I'm not doing anything until after the wedding, I said suddenly. Josh blinked. Emma, I'm serious. If the DA decides to move forward before then, fine, but I'm not the one who's going to crash her perfect day. He tilted his head. Why? I looked at him. Because that's not who I am. I'm not going to let them make me the villain in a story they wrote with lies. Josh studied me for a moment. Then, without a word, reached down and squeezed my hand. Okay, he said, but justice will come, and when it does, it won't be quiet. The invitation had arrived weeks ago. Gilded edge, soft blush font, nestled in an envelope sealed with wax. I didn't RSVP. I didn't need to. Vanessa knew I'd come. She thought I'd sit in the back like an afterthought, smile politely, maybe cry a little. She was counting on my silence. On the version of me she could control, the one who always avoided scenes. But that girl didn't exist anymore. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror wearing a slate blue dress Grandma once called my quiet power color. The lake sparkled just beyond the window. My hair curled over my shoulders in soft, deliberate waves. Every detail was intentional. Not to compete, not to perform, just to own the space they tried to erase me from. Josh arrived at my door wearing a navy suit and carrying 2 coffee cups. One said bride and the other said plot twist. I didn't ask where he got them. You sure you want to do this? He asked gently. I took the coffee, sipped, and smiled. I was born to. The wedding was at the lake, my grandmother's dock, strung with fairy lights and floral garlands that made me ache. The trees were hung with linen drapes, and the catering staff moved like clockwork between white tents and glass tables. I kept to the sidelines during the ceremony, watching Vanessa glide down the aisle in her pearl-studded gown like she'd just won something. My parents sat in the front row, my father dabbing his eyes like he hadn't gutted our family legacy with the stroke of a pen. When the vows ended and the applause began, I clapped politely. I didn't cry. Not once. At the reception, I let Vanessa find me. She always did. She was surrounded by a circle of friends, champagne in hand, her new husband already forgotten in the photo frenzy. She wore triumph like perfume, subtle, expensive, and designed to linger. Well, well, she said as she stepped forward. You made it, I'm shocked. Were you? I asked, sipping my drink. I wasn't. She tilted her head. I hope you're not planning anything dramatic. It's not really your color. I smiled. Neither is ownership fraud, but here we are. she blinked. Before she could recover, she raised her glass with a wide grin, turning to the nearest guests. "Everyone a toast," she trilled. "To the house my sister gave me, thank you, Emma." Laughter, applause, a few clinks of crystal. I stood slowly. Calm, radiant, unreadable. I lifted my glass and looked her dead in the eye. "After the ceremony," I said softly, "check your mailbox." The smile slid from her face in slow motion, and I took a sip. The phone began vibrating at 6:12 a.m., then again at 6:14. Then a steady avalanche: text, call, voicemail, call, call, call. By 6:30 I rolled over and looked at the screen. 126 missed calls. My mother, my father, Vanessa, two uncles. A blocked number that could only be the family lawyer. One long, desperate voice message from Vanessa's new husband whispering, "Can you call her back? She's kind of unraveling." I didn't respond. I just got up, tied my hair back, and made coffee in the same chipped mug I'd taken from Grandma's kitchen when I left the cottage that first night. The one with the faded bluebirds and the tiny crack in the handle. I drank it black. At 8:02 a.m., my father's name appeared on my screen again. I let it ring. By 8:15, a single text came through: brunch. 10 a.m. just us, please. I stared at it for a long time. Then I texted back, "Okay, but you'll listen. This time I talk." They'd chosen the same garden terrace restaurant we used to go to for birthdays when we were kids. A soft, overpriced place with linen napkins and orange juice that came in champagne flutes whether you asked for it or not. I arrived at 10:02. My father stood as I approached, clearly shaken. My mother looked pale, her mascara smudged like she hadn't slept. Vanessa sat stiff and livid, twisting her cloth napkin in her lap like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the cue. I sat down and didn't say a word. They didn't either, not at first. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Emma, we received something from the prosecutor's office." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" He pushed a folded letter across the table. "A formal notice of investigation into the will. They say the notary is being questioned, that the documents have been flagged for fraud." I didn't touch the letter. I already knew what it said. Vanessa finally exploded. "You went to the government over a house." "It wasn't just a house," I said calmly. "It was my home, my inheritance, and Grandma's last wish." Her mouth twisted. "You're ruining everything. I'm married yesterday and today I'm getting questioned about legal fraud." I met her eyes. "You're being questioned because you committed it." Dad held up a hand. "Okay, stop. This doesn't help, Emma. Look, we're willing to fix it, quietly. No lawyers, no court." "Fix it how?" I asked, though I already knew. He leaned forward. "We'll reverse the transfer. You get the house. We walk away from all this. Just drop the case before it becomes public." I looked around the table. My mother couldn't even meet my eyes. Vanessa's jaw was clenched so tight I thought she might break a tooth. "You only care about it being public," I said slowly. "Not about what you did, not about what it cost me." Dad exhaled. "Emma, we're trying to make peace." "No," I said. "You're trying to erase the consequences." He went silent. Waiter approached nervously, offering coffee. I declined. So did everyone else. I pushed my chair back and stood. "I didn't come this far to protect your lies." Vanessa scoffed. "So what, you want revenge?" I leaned forward just slightly. "No, I want truth to have weight again. I want Grandma's voice to matter more than your wedding registry." Then I walked away. No more begging. No more asking for permission to be heard. The truth was no longer buried. And neither was I. It took 21 days. 21 days of silent phone calls, unsigned apologies, lawyer back and forths, and stalling emails before the offer finally came through. A quiet settlement. No admission of guilt. No trial, just a formal agreement. The forged will would be voided and the original honored. The cottage and its surrounding land would be transferred back to me as Grandma intended. No press. No headlines, just justice in quiet ink. I signed the documents with a steady hand, not because I'd healed yet, but because the truth had finally found oxygen. When the paperwork cleared, I drove back to the lake alone. The front door creaked the way it always had. The scent of lavender and cedar hit me like an old lullaby. The porch swing still swayed just slightly in the breeze, like it had been waiting for someone to come home. This time I had the key. Josh joined me the next morning, toolbox in hand, sleeves rolled up. "Still want to paint the swing white?" he asked. I smiled. "Only if you help." We spent that weekend sanding down the wood, brushing on coats of soft eggshell paint, laughing about the time Grandma scolded us for using her kitchen spatulas to build a birdhouse. I planted lavender again in the front garden, right where hers used to bloom each June. Some routes deserve a second chance. I worked during the day, my data analytics job finally feeling like something I could do without distraction. In the evenings, Josh and I would sit by the water, barefoot on the dock, mugs in hand. No pressure, no grand declarations, just presence. "This house has peace now," I said one night, watching the light ripple across the lake. Josh looked at me. "No, you do." And for the first time in months, I believed it. 1 year later, the house didn't just look different, it felt different. The porch was now strung with golden lights that flickered softly each evening. The swing we'd painted white held floral cushions sewn by hand, none of them matched, but somehow that made them more perfect. And the smell of lavender drifted through the open kitchen windows like it had always belonged there. There was laughter again. A quieter kind, maybe, but real. I was hosting my third weekend writing retreat, 6 women this time, all strangers at first. All here for the same reason. Something in them had been broken, betrayed, or buried. They were artists and accountants and mothers and former daughters who'd once called themselves too much or not enough. Now they were here, in my house. And I was finally ready to share it. We spent the mornings writing on the dock, notebooks open across sun-warmed laps. Afternoons were filled with tea and long walks, where stories began to pour out like water through cracks that had waited too long to open. Each night, we gathered by the fire pit with blankets wrapped tight and voices a little braver than the day before. I never told them all the details of what happened to me, not because I was hiding, but because I wanted them to speak their own stories first. But tonight, I knew it was time. I stood in front of the fire, the lake glowing behind me in the moonlight. Josh was inside, probably cleaning up cocoa mugs and smiling to himself when he realized I'd left the door open again. I held my journal, the one I'd started the week after I lost the house, and kept through every single moment of getting it back. I opened to the last entry, my voice was steady. "Some things are stolen," I read aloud. "Others we fight to take back." The fire cracked. I glanced up at the women, their faces lit with soft orange light, some blinking back tears, others nodding slowly like the words weren't mine, they were ours. "Sometimes the betrayal doesn't break you," I continued. "It reveals you, the version of you that stopped shrinking to be lovable, the one who doesn't hand over her voice just to keep the peace." I closed the journal gently. This house was once a secret kept between me and my grandmother, but now, it's a promise kept with myself. A long silence settled, the kind that doesn't beg to be filled, the kind that lands, and then someone whispered, "Thank you." We stayed out a little longer, talking, not talking, being. Later, when the others were asleep and the fire was nothing but a soft orange glow, I stepped onto the dock, barefoot, just like I used to when I was a girl. The lake shimmered like it was holding my memories gently. I smiled, not because I'd won, but because I'd survived. And maybe that's the greater victory. That was the end of my story. Vanessa could have told the truth before the wedding, but she chose to toast my silence instead. I keep wondering, was she trying to protect herself or just hoping I'd stay quiet forever? Tell me in the comments, did she do the right thing? Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you want more stories like mine.